Everybody get a chance to review those minutes, and are there any questions on them? Nothing? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to accept the minutes.
Second.
All right, all in favor of approving minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries. Next order of business, bills. Staff, what do we have for bills this month?
Major bills we have this month, we have a facade improvement grant payout for 311 East 2nd Street. We have 1 year's worth of electricity for 213 Ramsey. That is the building the vacant building that we own on 3rd and Ramsey Street there. So we will be getting monthly bills from now on that one. So that's the large amount on that. And then the rest of that is primarily legal bills for various developments and general matters. So I can stand for any questions.
Anyone have questions? Okay, I'll take a motion to approve bills. All right, got a motion? All right, and we have a second. All in favor of approving bills, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? All right, motion carries. On to business.
Right. Well, I can make a couple introductions here. HEDRA, pleased to welcome tonight Raisa Matala and her team here tonight. Raisa's been working with us in marketing our shovel-ready site within the industrial park. This is the 50-acre site, large piece of property that we've held for a number of years. We've had shovel-ready certification on that for about 5 to 10 years now. And Raisa has some great connections throughout the country and throughout the industry. She's one of the most well-connected individuals I know. So this is great for us to have here in Hastings. I thought it would be good for her to come forward tonight, give her perspective on the market and or how things are, where the market stands within the shovel-ready site in Hastings. So I will turn it over to you, Raisa.
Thank you, John. I'm speaking at an event next week. Do you want to intro me there?
What's that? Hey, could you just turn that mic just towards you a little more?
Yeah, sure,
Thank you
for
so much.
sure. I'll just kind of hang out here. Well, thank you for having us. I see a couple familiar faces, so it's really good to be back. John, I like your sweat. I feel like on all my Hastings prospect calls, I'm going to need one of those just to be like, hello, here we are. Yeah. But yeah, so I think this is a great opportunity for us to kind of circle back after last year to, give you all an update on where we are, the activity we've seen. And before I do that, I did want to introduce Isabella. She's on our team who's working on prospecting, marketing, and taking this out to various end users around the country. And then Jeff Castleman, who is my business partner in from Chicago. I'd like to say was planned, but you guys all just got really lucky with him here tonight. And I'm going to put him on the spot because Jeff is a 35-year industry veteran and a former developer with CRG. So, with all those hard-hitting questions on industrial development. Anyway, so we've had some decent activity. Initially, when we took this out to market, it was pretty hot. We were coming out of that COVID bubble of everyone needing industrial land being just gobbled up and interest being 2%. So something we'll probably never see again in my lifetime. But since then, we did get into a different debt market where it was a little bit more expensive. And we did see some of those initial offers from United Properties and Scannell. Scannell was probably the most serious buyer at the time, pull out. They retraded our offer and came back with a 3-year hold period, a massive reduction in price by about 30%, and they did deduct all their carry costs. And so at that time, we did decide not to follow through with it. Since then, most of our interest has come from end users, which would make sense. There really isn't a market for spec right now. It really is going to be a build-to-suit site. And some of the issues we are seeing has to do with access. Having the ability to get trucks in and out in a very quick and timely fashion are some of the users' feedback that we're seeing. They love the site. It's a beautifully shaped site. It's shovel-ready, they love the city, but access seems to be our biggest problem. Our second issue right now is the size of keeping the park a little more uniform and having the ability to find a user that's going to take 500,000 to 1 million square feet. So in your packets that John will send out later on, there is a couple of renderings in there that are not to scale, as in this is the only way to do it. But there's 3 examples of what this park could inevitably look like in the future. Now, the one scenario does show 1 million square feet, and Maybe Jeff will have a different thought on it, but I personally don't think 1 million square feet on the site, let alone in our market today, is the right move. The second two options, I think, are a little bit more feasible. Having the ability to have 125 up to 250 square feet in several buildings gives us more opportunity to diversify our tenant flow, but also build it out in phases for a developer who ultimately would buy the site if it's not an end user. There are some prospects that we've had serious conversations with. We have spoken with a company recently who's working through carbon credits. They are a lettuce grower, vertical farming. It's become like the new fad now, where you grow your lettuce in like a warehouse with LED lighting. And they also do hydroponic farming, so with fish. It's very fascinating if any of you have seen it in person. Those vats are massive. They do consume a lot of water, so that is a concern as well. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think last time I was here, we had a conversation about advanced manufacturing. I think that really does kind of start falling into where you may want to see the site go ultimately and not have a heavy manufacturing use. That would create jobs, whereas we've seen some interest that's more serious from distribution centers, and they don't typically create the same number of jobs that the city is looking to put in place. So at some point, we're going to have a serious conversation of, do we want to fill this land site and build a building, or do we want to focus on job creation? What's going to be the most important thing? I think we're priced really well for the market. We've submitted several RFPs to out-of-market, out-of-state end users. There's one currently right now out of the south we're waiting to hear back from. They are a 400,000 square foot distribution center. Their holdup is that they're going through an initial process. It's going to take them a couple months just because of the mere size of them, but they're vetting out city incentives, tax benefits, the size of the parcel, the cost of the land. So we did send that packet to them. Alex and I have spoken with Greater MSP on a couple things. There are some follow-ups there with those folks as well. We are seeing more activity in general, just in our market and in the greater US, of increased users coming to find space. But ultimately, at this point, we haven't identified the perfect use. Any of the smaller uses we get are several. It's a little hard to keep up with them, unfortunately, and they're not always big conversations because they're just right off the bat not something that's going to be feasible. Most of them are looking for outdoor storage for pontoons. You know, we want 25 to 30 acres to build a 20,000 square foot building and then just store all of our pontoons off-site. That ultimately is not what we want here. It's not what the city is looking for in the long run. So I'll leave it to that for right now. Are there any immediate questions on the marketing, the prospects, what type of advanced manufacturing we're looking at? I know distribution is not what you want, but I do think we're going to have an access issue. It is far to a good chunk of where any truck would need to go to get between here, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Last year, we did do a drive time map. I think it was prior to Alex, and it kind of told a big story about we aren't in an ideal location for someone to want to ship things quickly.
So the hydroponic food production indoor facility, how's that for job creation compared to like manufacturing? And then you mentioned water consumption. Is there, obviously a lot of water is consumed. Is there a lot of discharge water into the
Yes.
city system as well? Okay.
Yeah. That is the case. So for their lab portion of it, they're looking at anywhere from 25 to 45 jobs that are going to require a master's degree or higher. And then for the warehouse itself, it's going to be between part-time and full-time, between 50 to 100, and sometimes that can be seasonal as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Great to see you again, Marisa. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Izzy and Jeff, for being here as well. My question is more clarifying, just to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. If we could pursue both advanced manufacturing and the hydroponic fish tank lettuce grower, we would do something like that. It could be both, yes and, right? Is
Yes.
that what you're saying?
Yes, so ultimately, right now, our marketing is, this is an industrial site. This is what it's zoned for, this is what it's going to be. The specific use is just left as that. We're not specifically telling anyone in the market, it has to be this use. These are based on prospects coming in, but also conversations we've had in the past of what ultimately would like to go here, right? I will go as far as to say that I've had conversations with developers who have shown interest, like UP, in recent months of, it's zoned industrial, does it need to be industrial, given the immediate area and the access and how we're looking at growth long-term? So we're not going to pigeonhole ourselves to something. We are going to say what it's out there, and put it into the market for what it is, but ultimately, our job is to keep options on the table. I'm a big believer in a contingency plan. I like A, B, C, and D. So ultimately, that is what we're doing in terms of a marketing perspective.
I guess just one more follow-up, if that's okay. So there is potential to have multiple buildings, multiple businesses
Yes.
doing multiple things on the site.
Correct.
I know we talked about that in the past with the purpose of it, but I just wanted to clarify
Right.
that's still where we're going.
If we stick to the industrial concept, for example, and if we look at, it's on the third page of the renderings in the brochure, if we do anywhere from 125 to 150,000 square feet, we can go anywhere between 5 to 6 buildings.
Oh, great, okay. I guess.
And that would include setbacks and truck access as well.
I guess personally, just from the folks that I represent and have heard from, our focus is job creation. I mean,
Yes.
that is what I care about. That is something that's very important to me in our community, so.
And I don't think we've gotten that from the distribution users that have submitted on our site, because they're not able to meet the labor wages for pay,
Sure.
as well as the number of jobs. Now, John and Alex have put us in touch with a business in Hastings, and I don't want to share too much for any specific confidentiality reasons. Now, that's a great user, right? This is someone who's been in the community forever. They have an existing business. They're looking to grow it. They're looking to keep it here, and they have a potential of job creation, and now we just have to identify, is this site going to work? Because for us, I think the site ultimately can work. It comes down to, we just can't go in and build 50,000 square feet on 75 acres. There's no value there long-term.
Thank you.
No problem.
Hey, staff, any other questions or comments on this?
No, I appreciate the conversation, the questions tonight as well. This fits well with our conversation we'll be having later on pertaining to the strategic plan. And want to thank Raisa and Jeff and Izzy for attending tonight.
You guys were way too nice to them.
Yeah, we look forward to more conversations and more things happening, so thank you.
Absolutely. And my contact information is on that brochure and online, so if any of you have questions outside of this or would like to reach out or just have a conversation one-on-one, please feel free to do so. We're always available. Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Next up, we have a request for an authorizing of signature for the parcel of land north of Art Space for use by the railroad. Staff, go ahead.
I can make this a very simple item tonight, HEDRA. We put together a license agreement for use of that property, and the railroad is no longer seeking to use that. So we will withdraw that from the agenda tonight. That will not be necessary. They're going to be using the lot for staging for that project.
Okay. All right. Well, that was easy.
Yeah, it was easy. Move on up here.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Right. Well, HEDRA, what we got before you tonight is, let me start with this before. Yeah. Wastewater treatment plant. I think you're aware that the existing wastewater treatment plant, which is located downtown just east of the railroad tracks, is in the process of relocating its facilities elsewhere within town. This large site, which, you remember what the acreage is, about maybe 4 acres or so? Yeah, about 4 acres will be coming back to city ownership upon the movement of that facility elsewhere. The one thing that they do need with this plant is to have a lift station and some other infrastructure to basically take the capacity of all the lines that dump into this site right now and pump it out to the new site down on County Road 54. So they've been looking at potential of locating that infrastructure on the property, and they've also looked at the possibility of locating it on the property next door, which we own here next to Art Space, and came up with a concept plan of this, which would show the location on just north of Art Space. This is a very difficult map to look at. I'll try to provide some interpretation here. This is the edge of the Art Space parking lot down here. What we have here is 2 lots that are located just north, a little over an acre altogether. We have the large power line easement and power lines that run directly across the property here, which bifurcated. You've got a smaller area down here, which is free and clear, probably altogether buildable, ½ acre, maybe 3/4 of an acre at the most. You also have a smaller portion which is located north of the easement area, which is encumbered by flood areas. You've got the 500-year flood area in blue and the 100-year flood area in orange here. So really, you've got an area north of the site which is very small, probably a 1/4 acre or so, 1/3 acre north of that site. That's been problematic for development and people that have looked at that site over time. What we looked at with Metropolitan Council was the potential of locating that infrastructure within that northern portion of the site, which is small to begin with and already impacted. What we're looking at here is something I'll blow up, maybe that'd be easier. Fenced-in area here, which is about 60 by 40, I believe, which would house some above-ground infrastructure and then a driveway access that would come across. I will say the driveway access there can be modified at any time if development was to come forward and need a modification to that, but it is located within that easement area of the power lines itself. Some of the areas that you see adjacent to it here are underground facilities, so they would not be anything at grade. Couple control panels and transformers located just outside that area. So you may be asking the question, why would we be locating this on this site and adjacent to the river here as something that would be desirable? This property is encumbered. The potential of the north portion of this property developing as something on its own has been quite limited. Going back almost 20 years now, when we had a plan for development of this property, we contemplated the possibility of a small restaurant on the site here that never really took place. We had a cidery project a few years ago, which didn't take place either. We've had some other questions that have come up in the past too with, potential other seasonal things that could happen here. That would not preclude some stuff from occurring up here in this area, but this is a difficult area to access. It would still leave the area to the south here open for development. Another advantage that I see from it located on this site instead of the site next door is now we've got a much larger 4-acre site which is free of encumbrances. That is going to be very desirable down the road for development on that. So we're looking for any comment that HEDRA may have on the siting of this. I'm going to show another picture down here. I do have, nope, not that far. Little tiny mock-up of what this would look like. The fenced-in area here, and I will say the fenced-in area, we will work with what the fencing looks like to make sure it's not your typical chain link fence, something that would fit within our riverfront area. And then this would be an underground facility here, this mostly underground, as you can see here. So the above-ground facility is within the 60 by 40-foot area. So I can stand for any questions you may have tonight. So tonight we're looking for questions, direction from HEDRA, not looking for any final action or anything. Thank you.
John, I've got a question off the bat. What is the height of the structures that are above ground in that case?
Let's go back down here. If this is your typical 6-foot fence here, I think the purpose of the fence is to shield everything inside. I don't believe anything is going to protrude above that fence.
John, is this a permanent structure then? Even after that wastewater gets moved, this will be in place for forever, basically?
It would be, yep. This would be a permanent lift station facility, correct.
John, question, and is the need to think, and I've asked this before about the Federal Railway Authority and building something that close to the railroad property in case of an incident. And granted, this is probably all the liability is with the Met Council, but would the city still have some liability if there was an accident there? Our responsibility would be what, I guess is, I'm still thinking it's too close to the railroad tracks, because if something happened there, you'd have a mess in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, we would have a lease agreement with Metropolitan Council for the site there if we were to make that decision. Questions of liability would be part of that agreement itself. Taking a look at the site and its location generally here compared to some of the facilities they have already on the other side of this track, I suppose there's always a risk inherent in that, but I don't know how
I just
much
think
greater it would be.
it's like, when the current facility was put in place and expanded, there probably weren't any restrictions, but now FRA is looking at putting in restrictions that maybe aren't in place yet.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they're gonna happen, and so, okay, if Met Council says this is where we wanna put it, and all of a sudden there's a problem, I don't wanna put the city's liability out there for putting something there when there's a question.
No, and I think that's a fair question, that when we have a lease agreement with Met Council for operation of this on our property, we need to ensure that the liability rests upon them.
Correct. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
My only request, John, is that if we move forward with this, that you let the DBA know. Because that cute little shed that sits on that property is being used by them.
Okay.
So there's just some stuff. So easily relocated. We just need some time.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
And I also want to share with you, and this might be a parking issue for our out-of-town guests for concerts, but when we have these concerts, the trailers go there. So I don't know how many years this has been going on, but that's what I see when we have these big concerts. So, and I know we're already considering developing in the other parking lot, so we might want to think about where are our out-of-town guests, where are they going to park, where are they going to put their trailers? So.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one, John. So does this station have to be within so many, I don't know if it's yards, feet from the original water treatment plant? So we've kind of reduced our area that we can move the new facility?
I believe so. All of the sewer plant generally works through a gravity system where everything flows down to about here. And
Okay.
so if we go any further out from there, it becomes problematic. Looking at these two areas, that would work best. I don't know if areas outside these two properties may work, but I know to have something in that close proximity is important.
Okay, so if we start looking at the area that's east of the railroad tracks where the water treatment plant is, I'm assuming a lot of that's going to be encumbered by the flood restrictions too, as we go over there, correct?
Right.
And then how much will be left on that if we're taking out, and when I see 100 and 500, I don't believe anything anymore because of what's been going on in the world, but, so how much will be left in that lot once the water treatment plant that can be developed?
How much would be left on
Yeah.
on
So
which
if we're
property?
East of the tracks.
East of the tracks, got it.
Because
Yeah.
I think that was one of the points you were making, is that that could be a developable, is that a word?
Yeah.
Lot.
We believe so, yeah. And I don't want to put the cart too far before the horse on this, because this would require some changes to our planning in doing so. We have had our downtown has ended at the railroad tracks for as long as I can remember. This may be bringing stuff that is more dense east of the railroad tracks, and that certainly we need to have a careful discussion on doing so. From a developer standpoint, the developers we've talked about have found this to be a really good site. It's large, it's close to a lot of things within our downtown area. I think it would be very desirable.
Okay. It looks like a substantial lot there that could even go into two different purposes, right? I
When you-
mean, we've got commercial on Second Street. there.
Yeah, when you take a look at this, the art space building here is, I think, 36 units altogether. I mean, you can certainly put a couple of these over there. You know, the property we have right down the road here, which is 90 units, would also fit on the site with some left over as well. So just to kind of give you some perspective.
Yeah, you know, as much as I languish about the idea that we're taking, you know, some property that has a good direct access to the river, I think the trade-offs are probably where you guys landed.
John, can you go back to the map quick with the drawing? So that tie-in, the green, I'm guessing is their line to get that water pumped to the new station?
Believe so. I'm just looking for
Apologies if these are
12-inch PVC going
too
through here. Yeah, that's what that would be.
So are they gonna be able to tie into their current line, or are they gonna rip up, is that Tyler Street then that goes up?
Yeah, that'll be another larger construction project as this moves forward, is they're gonna have to, the lift station goes here, and then the line between the lift station and the new plant at 54 is gonna require some substantial infrastructure to feed everything down there. So there's gonna be some major utility work along Tyler Street and some of the other north-south streets as you go down towards there. And I know that's being reviewed as we speak here, and time frame being established.
And is that a joint effort and cost, or is that Hastings or Met Council?
Primarily, that's going to be a Metropolitan Council cost on that one. I think there may be some opportunities for us, if we're looking at doing utilities within that area anyway, to do those at that time, but the infrastructure for the sewer work to connect the facilities would be their cost.
So can you tell me why this needs to be in proximity to the old, or the current, I should say, water treatment plant?
The sewer system is a gravity-fed system, so everything in the system is designed to flow downhill to the river here. And so the lift station itself would be taking that from this low point, pumping up to a separate point so it could now flow back down to where the new plant is. So that's the design that they're using on this.
If I can help clarify, basically, moving it would require reconfiguring all the pipes in this whole part of the city that run right there, because they're all graded. So
Yeah.
to change that location would mean every pipe that feeds it would no longer be functioning.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this isn't new information necessarily. We always knew there'd be some kind of lift station.
Right. It's
Proximity.
it's a more difficult situation when you've got sewer lines compared to water. Water lines are pressurized, they're really not dependent on grade. The sewer lines are all dependent upon having everything flow downhill. And so they're graded in such a way to do that, unless there's very limited situations that we have that within town. It's the most efficient way to do those things. So that's been our plan.
Does this facility need to be open air?
As far as,
Or can this lift station be housed within some building on a future site?
Yeah,
Or on one of these sites in the future?
go back down here, whoops. I mean, this is some of the equipment that would be on the site here, utility cabinet, another chamber. This is this would be where the lift station infrastructure would be. It's within a building, a smaller building within the fenced area.
I'm just thinking the identity of Hastings is the riverfront. And I really would be disappointed to see something that's not used on the riverfront. Even if we make it pretty with a fence, it just feels like not having some kind of public use right on the river, especially when we have 4 acres opening up. I know this is a small replacement for that, but I think that'd be a little disappointing. You know, if this can be within inside of some other facility where Met Council has access to, you know, their own part of it, if that's an option or what, and that would allow both sites to have, you know, everything be developable.
Sure.
Sorry.
I think that kind of plays off where I was going with this, is that, you know, we've had it out there for developers, the site west, and, you know, the power line, everything's been an issue with that site, the way the square footage goes. You know, if we could do some development on the east and leave the site on the west, theoretically, maybe as a public use space, you know, since we've got that thing there now, so we're gonna have a pumping station there. You know, what else can we do to do maybe a public outdoor space around that, thinking that we can develop the east side of the railroad tracks? It's just a thing to throw out there.
John, I've got one more question here. Right now, main line into the plant comes across at Second Street and then takes a 90-degree left into the plant, correct?
I'm not certain of that.
Well, I was here in 67 when it got dug up in the east side of town, and that's what it looked like to me, sorry.
Okay.
Just had one question, John. As far as you talked about a land lease, do they buy the property or do we just, they pay us rent on it over time, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
I'm looking at it as a land lease for the area that they need for the infrastructure going in here. I'm not in favor of selling a property within there to do that. Yep, some,
Because I think there's, needs to be clarification on
Mhm.
it, because I've come to believe that the lift station is only by the city, not by that council. They're to build it as part of this project. I think the city ones are only to maintain. That's a different system. Like that.
okay,
So I just, careful thing.
okay, fair enough.
I get two things. That are you looking for approval for us? Sorry if I just.
Not looking
Okay.
for approval at this point. This is an idea that is out there right now. And if something moves forward that would require action, we'd take that back at a future date.
Okay. I guess I don't know if we've thought through that, you know, making it part of a development or something, which I know is a sacrifice, obviously, for whoever would be able to build on that site, but to allow both, I guess, and not, we're essentially scrapping that site then, and I feel like we've had some hopes and dreams for it, even though nothing's really come of it. I would just be sad to see that property basically go.
Yeah. And I'd counter by saying the north part of that property, there's really 2 sites we're looking at here. We've got the south end here, which would be unaffected, the one that's right next to Art Space. We got the power line easement, which encumbers the developability of this site. And then we've got the site up here, which is the area outside of the 100-year. And so you've got, it's limited within here anyways. You've got the hill that comes up from First Street in here, so First Street kind of subdivides this thing by the river at present. You've got room to work on this portion of the site. When you look closer to the railroad tracks here, that's less desirable because of the tracks and the bridge itself. It's a tough choice on that one.
Yeah, and I guess from my perspective, when you're looking at the attractiveness of the site, it's here's a beautiful river view or here's a pump station. It really loses its attractiveness, I guess, as a development site, if this happens, but anyway.
Any further conversation or questions on this? Okay.
Bring those comments forward to Public Works, and I'll have more information in the future on this. Thank you. So moving into updates, I don't know my agenda. Is that where we're at in the? Yep. Updates it is. Well, as long as I'm down here, I'll present one thing here. We were awarded for the Confluence project for Minnesota Brownfields Rescape, the award of the Innovation Award. Good job. To this board, the council, and the other members that have stood by this project over the last 14 years. So it's a great recognition and great thing to have here to see. So I just wanted to thank you and show you the hardware there. But other things going on development-wise, let me sit down. What we got?
Have you just been carrying that around?
I tried to put it on my neck, but it was like a talisman, but it was a little bit too much. But Walden Development, nothing scheduled so far is for Planning Commission review. Maybe sometime in May. Talk to the developer. He's working through some specific. He may have some specific purchasers that may be looking at some modifications. So he's going through the land sale end of it right now before he's moving forward on that. So pause, I would call it at this point. Don't know how long that might be. With the Mint Developer National Retailer at Pleasant and South Frontage Road that we executed the agreement at the last meeting, that's moving forward. The escrow payment has been paid. I believe that the application for Planning Commission for rezoning of the property comprehensive plan amendment will be coming in the next couple weeks and should be going forward to them in May, with the site plan information going forward later on this year. So that continues on, which is wonderful.
John, could I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
When will there be an announcement on that? When does that happen in the process? Just because I have for my brother out there who asks me constantly.
I would be surprised that the entity would be announced during this first round of the comprehensive plan and rezoning. It sounds like when they bring forward the site plan, which is going to be the building itself and how the site will be constructed, it appears at that point it would be made public. So I would say later on this year.
Okay. Thank you.
Simply Secure Storage, Storage Works done at Glendale and Spiral. Council provided approval of that, so that's going to be starting construction shortly. The Augustine property, which is vacant land just west of the city limits, east of Jacob Avenue between Highway 55 and 15th Street. I had a concept plan move forward on that one for the development of about 300 housing units on that site, a combination of single-family townhome and villa home sites. We had a planning committee of council meeting earlier this week. There seemed to be some general support for an annexation application when that would come forward in the future. There's been nothing stated as far as when that might occur, but they have hired a land broker that put this development plan together and is shopping that to entities who may come forward with annexation in the near future. So interest continues there, which is great. We have Dakota County, their solar project, permits came in for that, so that should be starting for their ground-mounted solar project down at the main county facility in Highway 55. And South Oaks 4th Edition, which is 35 home units down by 31st Century, they should be turning dirt as we speak right now to put in their utilities and streets and hopefully have a model constructed coming up this summer and other homes coming forward from there. So that is great news on that front. So I can stand for any questions on any other issues related to development.
Do you have anything?
I do have a question on the dairy
Yeah.
cooperative. Is cleanup going on? I mean, I'm driving by and it doesn't look like it's moving.
Not moving much, that's for sure. I sent them a letter I've been in weekly conversations the last couple weeks with them. They had promised to put up a fence, a board-on-board fence on 17th Street, so we didn't have to see it, the mess in there, and to clean up the mess that's been drifting out of that site on the parking lot right by the Leduc. I've given them, I think, to the 22nd to put that up. I've also contracted with Precision Landscaping to put it up on the 23rd if that doesn't occur. So one way or the other, that part will be done. With our weekly conversations, as far as the rest of the site goes, there's not been a determination for what the loss value would be, whether it be a total loss or what type of loss it would be on that one. They're waiting on that to happen before they make any decisions. They expect that to happen sooner or later, but it seems to have been at that point for quite some time. So that, I don't have any further information on there. I'm looking at it from kind of two standpoints. One, what is some of the worst aspects of the site right now, and how do we take care of those things? And that, to me, is the view of the site from 17th and the crap that keeps washing out in the parking lot, and taking immediate action on that one and meeting with them weekly to try to get the rest of this thing done.
I just wanted to share, I ran into a former student a couple days ago, and she mentioned that she had just moved back to town, and I asked her where she was living, and she's living in the current 33 apartments.
Okay.
And she loves them, and that's really fun to hear, new residents enjoying our new facilities, so
Yeah.
just wanted to share with everyone.
Great.
John, one question going back to the dairy setup. What can we do about, covering that debris so it doesn't blow away into people's yards? And that, we're seeing the washout in the parking lot and stuff like that and over to the Leduc, but how do we get that under control? So, can't we push that issue a little bit?
Yeah, no, I've reminded them of that as well, that the debris, that they put some rock or some other aggregate on top of that site to help with the blowing. What I'm hearing from individuals is that is not providing the protection that's necessary, and told them that's on their responsibility as well for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, the neighborhood has made it clear to me that something's got to be done.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Any other questions on the progress updates?
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had tonight. Again, upon conclusion of the regular meeting here, we'd be meeting in a workshop meeting to look over the strategic plan. And we'll just adjourn here and then move over to the volunteer room.
Okay. This time, I will adjourn tonight's meeting. Wait, I have to take a motion, don't I?
Yeah.
I don't have that authority.
Unilateral
All
power.
right. All right, we're good for a second. All right. All in favor of closing the meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, now that I have your permission, I'm going to close tonight's meeting. Meeting adjourned.